Welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining us today because, well, we're going on an absolutely mind-bending journey. We're going to look right beneath the super familiar sands of modern Egypt, peeling back the layers to reveal a world that seems almost alien. We're actually going to step away from the pharaohs for a minute to explore a history that is written directly into the very bedrock of the earth.
Now, when you picture Egypt, you probably visualize this ancient landscape of rolling sand dunes, harsh sunlight, and, of course, the towering pyramids, right? But what if I told you that this preconceived notion of Egypt as just an arid desert is entirely wrong, at least on a geological timescale? What if I told you that this vast expanse of dry sand is in reality a drained ocean?
It's actually true. A staggering 62% of Egypt's total land area is underlain by marine strata. We're talking thick layers of ancient rock left behind by the ocean. This means that way more than half of the country sits right on top of sediments deposited by the vanished Tethys Ocean. So Egypt isn't just a desert, it's literally a fossilized seafloor.
Here is a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with the vanished tropical ocean, explore the Valley of the Whales, uncover a marine archive beneath Cairo, reveal a missing fossil link, discuss a geoheritage emergency, and finally tie it all into the Makata mountain miracle. Let's get right into it.
All right, Section 1, a vanished tropical ocean. Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the geological reality of this landscape, we have to travel deep into the past. We basically have to strip away all that sand and refill a massive, warm equatorial sea.
So during the late Cretaceous, which is roughly 100 million years ago, the deep Tethys Sea covered almost all of Egypt. As we move forward into the early Eocene, around 56 million years ago, this shifted into a warm, shallow tropical sea. Then, by 38 to 34 million years ago in the late Eocene, we start seeing rich whale deposits forming in these coastal bays. Finally, around 34 million years ago, global sea levels dropped, the Tethys retreated, and over millions of years, erosion shaped the desert landscape we see today at 0 million years ago.
Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter? Well, think about the iconic pyramids of Giza for a second. They don't just sit on a pile of sand. They stand directly upon ancient Eocene rock, specifically something called nummulitic limestone. And that limestone is literally made up of billions of microscopic seashells. So when you're looking at the Great Pyramids, you are quite literally looking at monuments built upon the drained floor of a 40-million-year-old tropical ocean. How wild is that?
Moving right along to Section 2, Valley of the Whales. Let's leave the Giza Plateau behind and travel about 140 kilometers southwest to a place called Wadi al-Hitan. It's nestled right in the Fayum Depression, and this site is a pristine, incredibly protected window straight into the Eocene epoch.
So Wadi al-Hitan translates to the Valley of the Whales, and let me tell you, it more than lives up to its name. Out here on the open desert flats, you've got over 400 whale skeletons just lying exposed. And these aren't just any whales. We're talking about the fearsome Basilosaurus isis, which was an apex predator measuring 15 to 18 meters long, plus the smaller 5-meter Dorodon atrox. But the absolutely most fascinating part, these ancient early evolutionary whales still had vestigial hind limbs, actual legs and toes. It's the ultimate evolutionary snapshot of mammals transitioning from land to sea, just resting right there in the sand.
Which brings us to Section 3, Marine Archive beneath Cairo. Let's move to the city and see how this builds, transitioning from the quiet, remote desert to the booming, modern urban center of Cairo. Because, as you'll see, this geological story definitely doesn't stop out in the wilderness.
Look at Jebel Maktam. It's a massive limestone escarpment that completely defines the eastern skyline of Cairo. Back in 1875, the scientist Richard Owen documented fossils of ancient sea cows found in limestone that was being quarried right out of these Maktam cliffs for modern buildings. This means that Jebel Maktam is made of the exact same Eocene marine sediments as the Valley of the Whales. The bustling city of Cairo is literally built from fossilized microscopic organisms and ancient marine mammals.
Section 4, the missing fossil link. So we have whales in the remote Fayum Desert and marine fossils buried under the high-rises of Cairo. Is there a connection? Get ready, because here comes the biological smoking gun that links these two completely distinct geographical sites together.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how perfectly the data aligns between these two locations. Both Wadi al-Hitan and Jebel Maktam share the same late Eocene epoch and the exact same warm marine environment.
Across these two sites combined, researchers have documented 10 cetacean or whale species and 7 sirenian or sea cow species. Visually and geologically, this proves these two areas, separated by a full 100 kilometers, share the exact same marine origins.
But here is the absolute ultimate detective reveal. Remember the Basilosaurus, that 15-meter apex predator whale we talked about? Well, scientists examining a specimen out in Fayum actually found its stomach contents, and inside was a bony prey fish called Pycnotus mocotomensis. Now, why does that matter? Because this specific fish species was originally discovered and named in the Maqattam cliffs of Cairo. This single fish proves a continuous, interconnected marine ecosystem spanned the entire 100-kilometer distance between modern-day Cairo and Fayum. It's a real game-changer.
Unfortunately, this brings us to Section 5, a geoheritage emergency. While we've clearly established the deep scientific connection between these two areas, they are experiencing drastically different fates today. We're currently facing a massive geoheritage emergency.
The contrast here is just staggering. Wadi al-Hitan is a celebrated UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's carefully protected by a 200-square-kilometer buffer zone and hosts around 53,000 awe-struck visitors every single year. Meanwhile, Jebel Mokattam, which holds an equally important piece of this Eocene archive, is the active foundation bedrock for one of Africa's fastest-growing cities. Its fossil record is being tragically and irreversibly buried beneath tons of urban infrastructure.
To put that into perspective for you, the urban footprint of the Mokattam area grew 1.4 times just between the years 2000 and 2017 alone. Every new road, every new building and utility line crushes paleontological material that has managed to survive for over 40 million years. This is exactly why researchers are urgently calling for geopark legislation before this incredible archive is lost forever.
And this brilliantly illustrates our final point in Section 6. The Mokattam Mountain Miracle. You see, Jebel Mokattam isn't just the site of scientific urgency, it's also the focal point of a deeply held human narrative. Let's look at the beautiful convergence of this physical geology with history.
According to documented historical and religious tradition, back in 975 CE, the Fatimid Caliph challenged the Coptic Pope Abram to prove his faith by moving a mountain. Following a 3-day public fast, a pious cobbler named Simon the Tanner was chosen to intercede. The Coptic tradition states that at the foot of Jebel Mokattam, after prayers were made, the massive mountain visibly trembled and moved.
Now, let's look at this neutrally. What's truly beautiful here is the physical convergence. Historical commentators from the 10th century pointed to the presence of snails and mold in the rock as physical proof of the mountain's miraculous movement, and its connection to water. On the other hand, rigorous geological science points to those exact same shells and identifies them as 40-million-year-old nummulites from the Tethys Sea. Both traditions look at the exact same physical rock and find profound meaning, without ever conflating the two.
In this explainer, we're applying what we call epistemic discipline. We aren't endorsing a supernatural side over a scientific one or vice versa. We're just neutrally explaining how two completely different epistemological domains, science and faith, honor and find deep significance in this single physical space.
When you pull all these narrative threads together, the story is just breathtaking. Jebel Mokattam has undergone an incredible physical transformation. It's a literal multi-million-year journey. The very rock that makes up this towering mountain skyline began as the crushed floor of a warm, vanished ocean filled with massive, leg-bearing whales.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen how the sands of Egypt hide an ancient ocean and how a city's mountain is literally built from the fossils of sea creatures. So, whether driven by the slow, immense power of tectonic forces or the profound weight of human faith, you kind of have to wonder how many other ancient mountains and familiar landscapes around the world are hiding a 40-million-year-old journey right beneath our feet.